Hello, intermediate band, and welcome to our theory portion of the assignment this week. Our first theory assignment is going to be dealing with whole steps and half steps, enharmonic pitches, and also how to build a major scale off of any pitch. So we're going to get started right away. This is the first time I've been doing theory this way, so let me know if it doesn't work for you very well or if something was confusing. I'm going to share a whiteboard with you. And I've already pre-done some of this to save us some time. So a few definitions that we need to know to get started. The first one is half step. And a half step is defined as the distance from one note to the very next possible pitch. An example of this is from C to C sharp, or even if you call it D flat, there is nothing possible in between those two notes, so it is a half step. If you were to look at these two pitches on the piano, it would be C is a white note, and then up to a black note, it would be C sharp, and that is, there's nothing possible in between. If you look in the very back of your book where the fingering chart is, and you go from one picture to the next picture right next to it, that's a half step, okay? The other definition you need to know is down here, whole step. And whole step is the distance from one note to the next letter note with a possible pitch in between. Also, you can describe this as two half steps. An example of this is from C to D. There is that C sharp in between. I put a line through it to let you know that that's not the note we're using to define this, but there is that pitch in between these two pitches. So from C to D, this is a whole step. The other term you need to know, and might be a review for you, is enharmonic, and that's only is simple. It's just a different spelling of the very same pitch. So up here at the top, at this example, I use C sharp and I put D flat in parentheses, and that's because that is the same exact note. There is no difference other than the spelling of it. And so D sharp and E flat are the same way. A flat, G sharp, you get the idea. Usually means that there's a flat and sharp in conjunction with each other. Not always. There's a couple of exceptions to that. Another thought to help you understand what a half step is the chromatic scale that most of you played for me in order to get into my group, that uses just a series of half steps, right? So C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, E sharp, right? And so that's what half steps are. It's easy, right? So hopefully this bit is a review and you knew somewhere in the back of your brain from beginning band or some previous class what a half step and a whole step was. So having done that, we're going to get started with today's actual lesson, which is how to build a major scale. And there is a formula for that. It is a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and then finally one more half step. And that is the formula for any major scale. All right, and you're saying, great, what do I do with that? Well, if we know what a whole step and a half step is, we can start on any note and create a major scale using this formula. So we're going to start that. We're going to try it right now. And I'm going to start on this pitch C because this is one of the easiest ones to build. So we have a C and then we need a whole step. So whole step from a C, there's C, C sharp, and then to D. Okay. Now we need a half step. Oh, sorry, and we need one more whole step. So we need from D to the next note with a note in between, and that would be D, D sharp, E. So E is our next one. Now we get to do a half step, and from E to the next possible note is F, right? There is nothing in between these two on a piano. This is one of the exceptions to, the pattern. And there is no, these are both white notes, E and F on a piano, and there's nothing in between. There's no black pitch in between, okay? So in our formula, we're here to this whole step. A whole step from F is G. There would be F sharp in between. One more whole step, A. Another whole step brings us to B, and now we simply need a half step. This is the other exception on the piano. There is no black note between B and C. Okay, so this is our C major. Scale. And if we were, I just really want to make sure that you understand what's going on here. So you have to put up with my bad drawing on this whiteboard. But between C and D, we have a whole step. Between D and E, there is another whole step. Between E and F, there is a half step. Between F and G, we have a whole step. Between G and A, we have a whole step. Between A and B is a whole step. My drawing's getting worse. And from B to C, we have a half step. Trust me, that's a half. Okay, so you can see that this whole formula here matches what we have up here. Okay, you really should memorize the formula because it'll make your life a whole lot easier. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And once you have that down and a clear understanding of what the whole steps and half steps are, you can start on any pitch and then build your scale. Let's do one more. I'm going to erase this because it's very messy. I'm going to write the formula again because you probably don't have it memorized yet. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Okay, so let's start on a flat. Let's start on B flat. Between B flat, oh, the next thing I needed to tell you is you need to use every letter name in order while you're creating your scale. So you can't have two of the same letter in the same scale. You have to move on to the next letter. And that's where the flats and sharps come in. So yes, technically B flat to C, which is the next pitch in the scale, you could say B flat to D flat or D double flat. But that's not using the letters in order. So you could just go ahead and write out all the letters in order until you get back to your starting pitch. We know it's going to be a flat because the first and last pitches got to be the same. And then go back and make any corrections you need with the sharps and flats to make the formula work. The other thing you need to know that for major scale, you're never going to have both flats and sharps in the same scale. So if you start out with a B flat scale, you're not going to have any sharps. So let's try this. We have B flat and we need some sort of a C that is a whole step. Well, in between these is B natural, so that already is a whole step. We're good to go. The next thing we need is from C to D, making sure it's a whole step. C, there's C sharp or D flat in between, so that is a whole step. Okay, now we need a half step. Between D and E is a whole step. We have to make that smaller because we can only have a half step according to our formula. So this has got to be an E flat, not an E natural. Okay, from E flat to F, we need a whole step. Well, there's E natural in between, so we're good to go. From F to G, we need a whole step. There's F sharp in between, so we're fine there. One more whole step, G to A is a whole step already, so that's great. And now we need a half step. You could say A sharp, but that breaks all the rules, right? First of all, you don't end and begin on the same pitch. That's a no-no. You have two letter names in a row that are the same. That's a no-no. So the only thing we can put here is a B flat. A sharp would be incorrect, even though it's technically the same note enharmonically. Okay? So what are the rules for a scale? 1, follow the formula. 2, use every letter name in order. We don't have to put that. 3, begin and end on the same note. And 4, can't have sharps and flats in the same scale. Okay. It is actually pretty simple. If you're super lost right now, just take a breath and kind of relax and know that you can do this. Let's do one more together. We're going to do starting on G. And let's do a sharp scale. So G. Let's write down all the letter names in order so that we can get our number 2 rule done. G, A, B, C, I'm trying to space it out a little bit. D, F, G. G, A, B, C, D, E, F. Oh, I missed E. That's why it looks weird. E, F, G. There we go. Now we need to make sure that our formula works. Follow the formula. In between the first 2 here have got to be a whole step. Right? In between this one has got to be a whole step. In between here has got to be a half step. I'm just simply recreating that formula underneath so I can check my work. C to D is a whole step. In between these 2 pitches, we are going to need a whole step. In between these 2 pitches, we're going to need a whole step. And in between these 2 pitches, we end with a half step. Okay, so now let's check our work and make sure that what we wrote and our formula is actually the true thing. So we already know that we have all the letters of the alphabet taken care of. So number 3 is taken care of. At the moment, we don't have any sharps and flats all together, but let's check and make sure that the formula works. In between G and A is G sharp, so that's a whole step, that's good. A and B is a whole step. B to C, there's nothing in between those 2. Remember, that's 2 white notes together on a piano. So there's nothing to be done there. That is a half step already. C to D is a whole step. D to E, there's D flat or E or D sharp or E flat together there. So we know that that's a whole step. Between E and F is only a half step. Our formula states that we need a whole step. So we need to change this F to be farther away from that E. And how we do that is we just raise it a half step. So it will be F sharp. And then in between F sharp and G is a half step because there's nothing between. All right. So if you copy down this thing, or it'll be on a handout that I'll send you today, then you can use this to do scale on any pitch. So your assignment today is to create a major scale starting on a note D. Okay. And then you're going to email that to me at Playtime Music Mom. Make this so it's a makes sense for you. You can write it just down on typing like read it. You do not need to write it on staff paper. In fact, I would prefer you just write it. And show me the whole steps and half steps, just with the little arrows, just like I've been doing with you. You do not need to learn to play it yet, and you do not need to transpose it to be concert pitch for your instrument. All I'm looking for is that you understand how to start on any note and make this scale. So use sharps and flats as necessary to create that formula. And again, this information should be on the handout. So if you didn't get it on the whiteboard, that's fine. You should be able to get it from the handout that I give you. Hopefully this helps you understand that. If you have questions or something that didn't make sense, or I skipped a step or something, feel free to email me. I am more than happy to go over it with you individually. And it should be kind of fun. It's like a little puzzle. So hopefully you will find it to be that way. Until next week, that's it for this week. And I look forward to meeting those of you I haven't seen yet and continuing our study of music together. Have a great week. God bless.